This and that and what the fuck else, episode 138. In this one I'll be talking a bit about the pestilence, the Donbass, the EU, the global revolution, some news out of the Ukraine and the US, and what the fuck it will make you frown, but look at it carefully. They had evil plans. It was quite a busy week with Blinken all over the place. He visited a lot of the stones, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and all those stones, and he made some, I would actually call it hilarious remarks there. He conducted himself like a preschooler at the G20 meeting, and from the things that I have picked up over the weekend, it is obvious the rest of the world is done with the West. They are done with the West. The West has overplayed their hand, and the Ukraine is most probably going to be the last hill where the West makes its final stand. And if you ask me, they selected a shit hill to die on. But let's start. Look at this image. It is a very good image. But for me, if this is entered into a salon, it will have to go into the altered reality section, because there was a lot of digital manipulation done to this image. And in the view of that, I'm not even willing to judge the thing, because there was too much alterations done to it. And then we get to Russia and the pestilence. Now, due to many reasons, I cannot go into too much detail around this post, but just can stop the video if you want to read all of it. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the destruction of all snakebite stockpiles in Russia. And I'm not going to read the rest because it's too dangerous for me, but I think the noose is closing. And then this next image, my famous Nazi stalker referred to this image and showed it, and he showed actually the link to the video, and he was over the moon about the fact that the Wagner leader was most probably drunk when he made it, and he was so focused on that speech that he didn't listen and look at the facts. Look at this image. These are people that surrendered or that was captured by Wagner. Look at those two boys on the left. They're most probably 16, 17 years old, and look at this old man on the right. And this confirms that Ukraine is tossing everything it can scrape together into the war in the Donbass. And my response to the stalker was, I am happy to see you enjoy it, but what else could I expect? That is typical Zazi conduct, in any case. The next series of photographs I want to show you, and this is Briekmerke. Now, many people, many Westerners will immediately say, yes, look how the Russians has destroyed that city. The fact is, the reality is, in that ruins, in a lot of the basements under these ruins, are Russian people, citizens, hiding from the war. The Ukrainians has got them there captured since August last year. Think about that. I've seen the videos of journalists that are talking to people coming out of Bakhmut, It is absolutely heartbreaking how the Ukrainians are using the people, the citizens, the civilians as human shields. Now this city has now been flattened because they're fighting basically house to house, because the Ukrainians set up fire points in their houses. They throw the citizens out of their houses and then they go into their houses. Think about that. And here is a little slideshow of what Briekmerke looks like. It is horrific. But then you must keep in mind, this, what you saw now, is exactly what the West has done to Libya, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria. That is what the West do. Standard. No wonder their puppets in the Ukraine follows the same route. And then the following image is of the Ukrainian soldiers leaving Bakhmut. Look at this. Soldiers of the Ukrainian forces leaving the city of Bakhmut, taking a toilet with them to be safe. Huh. And then there's this man. It was a video, and this is a screenshot, and in the video at this point it says, "Ours came," they said in the window, "Who is here? Come on out with your hands up," they thought. Civilian residents of Bakhmut in this house received a bullet from the armed forces of Ukraine. Ukrainians broke into my yard, then they hid behind the house, and when ours arrived, the shooting battle began. APU fired at the window. I was wounded. And then there's this lady. As they carried me in their arms, on their shoulders like this, I put my legs around them. In fact, they carried me for 3 kilometers. Yesterday, the boys carried me on their shoulders. The main difference between Russian and Ukrainian troops is their attitude towards civilians. Ukrainian soldiers set up firing points in residential areas, using civilians as shields, while the Russians risk their lives as they carry people out of the bombarded areas in their arms. This is what the rescued residents say. They also wish the Russian fighters a happy defender of the Fatherland Day and wish them to return home alive. And it is absolutely shocking. I've seen so many interviews of what is happening there. But the West is going to pay for this. The West is going to pay for it. And that means the Western citizens are going to pay for this. And then this is, I'm putting it in, the Ukrainian regime thought it was a clever idea to park a blown up Russian tank in front of the Russian embassy in Berlin, and it backfired completely. The Germans started putting flowers on the tank in sympathy with the Russian soldiers. The message under the Russian tank in Berlin: we pray for the victory of Russia on our knees every day. Russian victory is inevitable. And then we get to the EU more. This is this Schultz called on China to press Moscow to withdraw troops from Ukraine, also warning Beijing against supplying weapons to Russia. What do you know? They pump the Ukraine full of weapons, the West, and they've got the damn cheek to tell the Chinese not to give weapons to Russia. The hypocrisy has got no boundaries. And then we get to this, and it might want to make me puke. Drag queen forces child to leave class for denying 73 genders. School teaches anal sex to 11-year-old. Students were reportedly shown how skin grafts could be used to graft an artificial willy. What the fuck is that? what? But the West is done, morally rotten to the core. And then we get to the global revolution part of the presentation, and we've got Lavrov at the G20, and he has made some serious statements. Only way the UN and G20 can manage current geopolitical situation is to balance interest and not further unipolar hegemony. The West is overrepresented in the UN, and adding more Western allies will not add value to it. The colonial powers used to seize territory and exploit the global South. There are still British and French colonies which violate UN agreements. Sanctions and price caps are price-fixing actions which still promote their own interest at the expense of other countries. But the West does not listen. Unfortunately for them, the rest of the world is listening. And then we get to this, and you must just soak it in. Foreign Minister of Kazakhstan to Blinken and foreign media: "We do not feel threatened by Russia." Mukhtar Toberi stressed that Kazakhstan, along with Russia, is a member of the EAEC, CSTO and CIS and other associations and does not feel threatened by Russia. He also noted that the countries have completed the delimitation of the largest land border in the world and are ready for constructive cooperation. This was after Blinken stood there and said, America will help Kazakhstan defend their borders against Russia. And there was one comment that I have to share with you. In other words, fuck off Blinken, we are all sick to death of the lot of you warmongering bastards. And I must say, there was a hell of a lot more comments, but the Western warmongers is losing big time. And then there is this. China, Type 056 lead corvette with tail number 940 from February 23 of this year makes the transition from the territorial waters of China towards Algeria as part of the delivery. The ship was built at the Chinese shipyard Hudong Zhonggui, Shanghai, under contract for 6 ships of this type for the Algerian Navy. And the foothold in Africa gets bigger. And then we have this, once more, indication. The rest of the world has had enough of the West. President of Namibia, Hage Geingob, destroying the German ambassador Herbert Beck. German ambassador, there are 4 times more Chinese living in Namibia than Germans. Based president, the Chinese don't treat us like you, Westerners, do. And why do you Westerners always talk about the Chinese? Every time a Westerner comes to Namibia, they talk about the Chinese. And he is right. And then we get to NATO. And this is part of that. You must now probably know of it. There was a terrorist attack on a few villages in Russia. And the terrorists were, some of them were caught, and some of them bragged on Instagram and on the social media about what they did there and so. And they also admitted that they are a new Nazi group, and it also confirmed that they got into Russia to do this terror attacks with the blessing of Kiev. Bryansk's terrorist attack raises questions of NATO responsibility. Kiev has repeatedly admitted that all its actions are with the approval and support of the United States and other NATO countries. The murders in the Bryansk region were committed with NATO weapons, the Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement. This raises the question of qualifying these states as accomplices in such crimes and sponsors of terrorism? That's a damn good question. But I see they're now threatening more countries with sanctions, and they threaten China with sanctions. Now, what I want to know is, when the West bombed Libya into oblivion, were they sanctioned? When they did what they did in Syria, were they sanctioned? When they did what they are doing in Yemen, are they sanctioned? Are they disconnected from SWIFT? And then there was this. NATO military equipment in the port of Gdynia, Poland. And the reason I enter it here is just for you to take note of what NATO is doing in Poland. And the Polish people better wake up. They are next to be thrown into the meat grinder. Mark my words. And then there was this. And once again, my Nazi stalker must take note, because he sent me a message in which he told me the Russian economy is done. Russia's debt to GDP, lowest in the G20. Russia's foreign debt decreased for the first time in 3 years in 2022. Official data from the country's account chamber showed on Thursday external debt amounted to 4.04 trillion rubles last year, down from 4.44 trillion in 2021, according to the department. Meanwhile, the country's total national debt amounted to 22.82 trillion rubles, which is $302.7 billion last year, putting the debt to GDP ratio at 17.1%, down from 18.1%. The accounts chamber noted that the debt figures are within the norm, while the debt to GDP ratio, a fundamental indicator of economic stability, is the lowest among the G20, which signals that Russia's economy is in good shape. Well, the West doesn't look so good. The sanctions are eating them. And then, this is a blast from the past. The future Ukraine wanted for children in breakaway Donetsk and Lugansk. October 2014. Petro Poroshenko, Ukraine president from June 2014 to May 2019. Our children will go to schools and kindergartens. Their kids will sit in basements, bomb shelters. This is how we will win the war. And you want to tell me that's not a Zazi? Think again. And the following information is actually sad. Before and after, Ukraine losses on the example of cemetery in one of the cities. While Ukrainians are laughing at dubious victories, the whole country is turning into one big graveyard. And look at this. That is the before picture and the after picture. And I have seen dozens of images like this of cemeteries in Ukraine. Now, this is something to take note of. Zelensky's message to NATO. It is a very raspy and primitive sounding voice. Give me more money. Give me Leopard tanks. Give me F-16s. Give me HIMARS. Give me Predator drones. Give me Patriot missile batteries. Give me Queen Elizabeth class aircraft carrier. Give me Ohio class SSBN with nuclear missiles so we may punish Russia. As he sits in his basement, stoned out of his mind on cocaine and planning his next begging tour, the Ukrainian SS is being absolutely obliterated all along the battle lines. Bakhmut has become Zelensky's Stalingrad. God knows how many Ukrainian, Polish, English, British, American and Israeli paid mercenaries have been ground into the sausage meat in Bakhmut, cauldron of death. Gee, that impersonation has eaten my vocal cords. And then we get to the US, and Cheburiki Man posted this on Twitter. This is proof that America is a superior culture. Look at all these people having fun tenting on the beach. When they pack up, they will all go back to their mansions. Look at that. But they've got money to spend in Ukraine. And this is another just a ridiculous visual of what happens in America and what is happening in China. What trains look like in the US versus China. But the Americans better wake up. I did the Skidmark on the potential for civil war in America. You can find it on the channel. And then we've got this, breaking. Train derails in Ohio. Here is what has happened in Ohio in the past month. East Palestine disaster, metal factory explosion in Bedford, metal fabricator plant explosion in Cleveland, warehouse fire in Cincinnati, train derailment in Springfield. And the question that I am asking is, what the hell is going on in Ohio? And then there is more. Hazmat team scrambled to the scene. This is a train crash. On Saturday, a train crash was reported in Springfield, and crews have arrived on the scene. The Ohio State Highway Patrol stated that the incident occurred. I didn't open the article. And then we get to that what the fuck moment, and this is something that you will have to just think a bit. Cull for cats mauled by the UK government during the pestilence. Minister reveals. The government considered requesting the public to exterminate their feline friends, the former Health Minister Lord Bettel told Channel 4, as they were very unclear about whether domestic pets could transmit the disease. And now you must read this together with this fiasco around that British politician's WhatsApp messages that came out, in which he clearly stated how they're going to scare the living daylights out of the people. Think about that, let it sink in, and think again. I thank you for your support. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you.